This is part 2 of our chat with Snehal Patel, a producer and director at Fearless Productions. We talk about how AI was used in the production of his music video, and we talk about the future of storytelling through technology. And finally, we give our bold predictions for the year 2024. So stay tuned because part 2 begins now. What about AI? Was AI used in any part of the creative process, either in planning or in production or post?
What we set out to do is try to use AI where we could to test it, because there's a lot of talk about AI right now and a lot of fear. And you and I know that AI has been used, benevolently in a lot of different ways in the past. Certainly, there's a lot of room for it, but there's a lot of misconceptions, but also fear and justified fear by actors. Like this whole conversation that you and I just had about scanning somebody and then changing their performance later. Like that's what actors are worried about, right? Like that you could just scan me and then make me do whatever you want, right? That's not in the contract. And they're perfectly justified for that. But we didn't use AI to replace anybody. Our thing was, let's try to use AI for anything that is possible for this production. Can any of it be made easier with AI? Certainly not to replace anyone, but to make our own jobs easier. So even our Zoom calls, which we did a plethora of, by the way, everyone does Zoom calls for production meetings, was recorded by an AI assistant that annotates and sends you a link, and you get to watch the video back, or you can just type in thought that you had during the conversation, and it'll go right to that point and show it to you. So yeah, it's a really cool tool, but we tried other stuff. So first thing we tried was generative AI for ideation. When I was first pitching this project, and I think even some of the pitches that you might have seen early on, the imagery that was enhanced by Midjourney, because there was not much Indian cyberpunk material out there that I can Photoshop and change. We'd have to create our own. So we certainly used Midjourney to kind of generate for us imagery. And we ended up using even the color schemes that came from some of these images. And I had a friend of mine, Thomas Matai, that came on board early that was like wanting to learn, how to engineer prompting. And he worked on that. So a lot of the key art and concepts that we used. And then I even used Midjourney for our initial poster that we created, because I like creating key art that speaks to what the project is about, so that people get the idea about it, can conceptualize, visually what we're talking about. So when we create a key art, we use the Midjourney certainly for our backgrounds and stuff. Then we try to use storyboard software. No, could not do it. No, yeah, it was terrible because, it's not consistent. Generative AI, first of all, is hard to make consistent. There's now things out there like ControlNet and other things, and seed control and whatnot. But over this last year, if you're testing any of these generative AI tools like Stable Diffusion or Midjourney, it's not like this. They recognize like medium shot, close up, reverse angle, dolly in. That's not verbiage or ways to describe things that general public uses, right? That's something that's very centered on filmmaking. So, if you have a model that creates a library based on what 100,000 people describe something as, there's going to be very few people that call it a medium shot. So you can't really generate a medium shot, right? Because if you don't know what it is. So that's the thing, is like, it's not really good for filmmaking language. And plus you can't get what you want. I was much better off working with a storyboard artist. So I ended up working with a storyboard artist, and that was pretty cool because you get instant feedback. And any of these jobs that you have in filmmaking, like editor or storyboard artist or conceptual artist, whatnot, you're actually editing the film right then and there. In your storyboards, you're creating the project. So you need to know film language, and you have to have an understanding and kind of like a way to step back from the story and say, well, that's not going to make sense if she goes from, left of the frame to the right of the frame. And then the next shot, she goes from right to left. It's going to confuse the audience. Like you need that feedback. You're not going to get that from some AI software. So that kind of stuff. Also, we said, okay, storyboards, we got a storyboard artist to do it, made more sense. But we used some of our Midjourney generated imagery to prompt the storyboard artist to say, hey, look, this flying ship that I generated, that's the kind of ship I want to fly through the frame right now. Like, oh, okay, cool. Well, let's draw this in. And that's what it looks like, stuff like that. Or environments like, hey, I want this alley This is the kind of alley that we're going to be in. Okay, great. Let's make some movement in this alley. So that had helped to have those references. And then we're like, all right, cool. Now that we have the concept we know we want cyber, can we use generative AI for the Unreal environments? Because we decided to go with Unreal Engine for our environments for the LED walls. And that is right now, it's a crapshoot because yes, there are tools out there that say that they're AI based, but a lot of it is like 2.5D, where you're actually generating still images and then adding depth by cutting things out and then creating parallax by moving parts of a still image in 3D space. So this is like, you and I, when we were younger, we had these devices that we viewed, as kids that we viewed through, where it had these 3D looking images like Yogi Bear and stuff like that.
The
Viewmaster. It's stacked film. It's film that's stacked to give you an effect of parallax to make it look 3D. So there's multiple film planes there and they all have a different image and then they're all stacked together. So this thick film is actually maybe 3 or 4 pieces of film. So that's why it looks like Yogi Bear's in front and he's being chased by, the ranger behind him. And behind that is a house exploding. So all that is, you're doing the same exact thing with 2.5D. Generative AI tools for virtual production, essentially that's what they are, is that you're taking images and cutting them out and creating that. Now, you could, Verizon Labs in LA did do a generative AI tool for their LED volume. They have a test volume and that has a floor and has walls and it's XR, meaning that it's a small stage, but you could extend the set. So as long as you don't have more than 3 people that you're filming at once, all 3 people can be on the stage and you can make it look like they're in a much bigger room full of stuff, that stage, they have a skybox that they created that has, I think Stable Diffusion fills it in, but basically you just call up an image, like you speak into a phone and it generates an AI image that's put into the skybox and the image is stretched automatically to make it look like parallax. But you have to know first what camera position you have. So you have to generate after you lock your camera, because based on that, where that camera is placed, it's going to stretch out the skybox to make it look like, there's parallax. Well, really, it's not really parallax. It's just like it stretches out the front of the image that's on the floor towards the camera. And then from the camera's perspective, it looks like, it's 3D. You can't really move the camera that much. Right. So it's a glorified like 2.25D, not even 2.5D. It's kind of in between it. It's just like faking an image. But those are the tools that are available right now. So we use none of that. We used, again, our Midjourney generated images that we had already, created a lookbook, gave that to the artist and said, hey, make the world look like this. And then, by the way, here's the storyboards of all the movements and the action, so you know where everyone's going and what they're doing. Certainly, we then used it for other departments. We gave it to costume. So we said, here's some imagery that we like online. And, of course, they used some of the cues that they saw in the generated images to get stuff that they want, that they liked. The VAD creation, the virtual art department itself, it was all done in Unreal Engine. So we actually use real 3D. That way we can reposition, go anywhere we want in the world, fly around, etc. So I would say right now, AI is not good for building virtual worlds. It's not great for generating anything useful that you can use in terms of high quality. Certainly, it's good for generating 2.5D plates where you don't need a lot of movement. So this would be like a real estate ad where you just need a couple in front of their house. Then that stuff is great. But I need to walk into the house, or I need to make it look like I'm going around the house to the backyard. No, you can't do that with 2.5D. You need to have a 3D world to do that. So this is where you kind of have to know what the technology does and what the limitations are. We tried AI color tools for post. I'd rather just make the decisions myself. So we didn't end up using that. Yeah.
You're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk. You're actually getting your hands dirty and seeing what works, what doesn't work. You've done a lot of past projects, music videos, and you've done viral videos on YouTube. You were the brains behind some of those videos. Now, this is kind of a fun hypothetical question. If you were to go back to any of your past projects and do a remake or reimagining of an old project using today's tools that you just mentioned, which one would you try to redo or reimagine? And what tools would you use?
One of the projects I did in film school was about this female truck driver, essentially. She stole a truck, which is actually a spaceship from the Mars colony, and she's running away because they were oppressive to her, and she got caught up in the sex trade over there, and she's running. She stole a cargo ship, essentially that is long haul cargo, and she's flying back to the moon because there's freedom on the moon base, so that she just wants to reach there safely. The thing is, it's a long trip, and do away with boredom and to occupy time, people dive into a virtual world that they live in while they're long haul truckers, essentially cargo, hauling cargo from one part of space to another. And I always thought that was a cool concept where someone could get lost in this world, and her not being adept at this technology, certainly not being a trucker that's done this, or a cargo hauler that's done this all her life, gets quickly addicted to this virtual world to the point where she's oblivious to like Earth ships coming after her to blow her up because she's in a stolen craft and she's trying to get to the moon, and she doesn't respond because she's stuck in this virtual world. So I thought that was really pretty high concept for a tiny little, I think it was like a 4-minute short in film school. What I would like to do now is to shoot this kind of story, but for the Sphere in Las Vegas. And I want to make a project with the Sphere. And I actually know the people that, that helped put this together. So I know the guy that developed the camera that was used by Darren Aronofsky's team for a lot of the filming. They designed their own custom camera for the Sphere. I know the cinematographer that shot most of the content for Darren, because Maddie Libatique shot some of the stuff, the cinematic stuff, but Andrew Schulkind was actually the guy that shot the bulk of the whole project, and worked on this project, I think for a few years, actually. Him and I were talking about it a couple of years ago. I would love to do something there where it's a 30-story tall canvas, where imagine doing a space thriller where it's not like Star Wars or something where there's these fast moving ships that do explosions in space that you can hear, which is so unrealistic. It would just be like a very quiet, pondering space epic about some stolen goods, and then trying to fight in space, which is actually more of calculations. You have to wait till the right angle and the right gravitational pull gets you in the right position so you can fire a particle or a projectile that will eventually, hopefully, hit the right mark, if you time it correctly. Like stuff like that. That would be so much more interesting to do. And, I think it would be breathtaking. And then also you'd be, at the edge of your seat because it'd be very realistic. The quietness of space, the movement, firing a projectile that silently moves through vacuum of space, hopefully on the right path to hit correctly. Like that kind of stuff would be a lot of tension forming, and feel more like, remember Gravity? If you hadn't seen Gravity in IMAX, you missed out. I saw it in IMAX and 3D. So it was the 3D IMAX version of Gravity. That was one of the best 3D experiences I ever had. I usually don't like 3D movies, but that one was amazing.
I remember that, yeah.
Amazing cinematography, amazing visuals, but it had you on the seat of your pants because you really felt in the IMAX theater, you felt the fall. It's not the same. It's not the same on your TV screen. Like you have to experience that in IMAX to feel like, oh, whoa, you feel like you're falling. The movie was meant to be experienced on the big screen, right? It gives you a visceral feel. And that reminds me of when I was young and I first saw IMAX, which was actually at my age group, was in theme parks. It wasn't in the local theater. IMAX didn't move to theaters until much recently, very recently, and went mainstream, for their revenue and their business model. Their business model in the beginning was theme parks. This was like a crazy huge screen that you would go to like a Six Flags and you would watch a 10, 15-minute film, and it'd be an experience. You really feel it, right? Or if you go to Disney World, you go into a room where they have 360 screens, right? So yeah, you're really feeling it. You're immersed in it. So I want to make a project like that that's fiction, not not based in reality, or not based in like imagery from Earth, but puts you in this position to really feel this kind of space battle that's hyper realistic. So it kind of fits with the theme of, it's like a planetarium experience, except it's fiction.
Where's the Kickstarter? I want to contribute to this now. I want to see this, right? I would give part of my paycheck just to watch that. So,
because you imagine, like, if I'm throwing, like, if I decide to eject something from my ship and fire it at you, it's probably not going to be a missile. That'll just be a waste. It would rather be just some small thing like a bottle. Maybe just knock off of a solar panel so you can't have power. So what do I need to do? I could eject junk at you.
This little Aquafina bottle can be weaponized.
Yes. It'll freeze in space and become rock hard. And it's going to hit you pretty hard at an impact in the vacuum where there's no gravity slowing it down or no friction stopping it. It's going to hit you as hard as it goes out of my ship. So that's all you need. And then imagine in the sphere, you would say in a movie, if you're in a theater, me making a hole in something with a bottle, like, yeah, you can make it dramatic, but you can make it super dramatic. But you can make that hole like 3 stories tall, and you're really afraid of it. You're like, this does real damage. You don't think about it that way. You don't go to Star Wars movie and go, oh wow, if they threw bottles at each other, it would really suck for those TIE fighters. But that's all you need. That's all you need. And they wouldn't be screaming through space like that. So just imagine how you can make people understand science. You can make them viscerally feel the story. And they're going to come out of there like, oh, wow, this is space like I don't see it anywhere else. And I think that's the trick if you're going to tell a story with a new medium, is then do something different than no one else is doing,
Entertaining and educational. Do you have any bold predictions about 2024?
I think 2024 is going to be very important for film technology because we now have, because of the strikes and the way our industry's been over this last year, we now have a buildup of content that's going to happen, right? Like a lot of content is going to be created. A lot of catch up is going to be happening. There are projects that were in flux or incomplete that need to be completed quickly. Now, the availability of talent, technicians, all that is going to be low for a bit, starting in January, would be my assumption. So therefore, technology that makes things easier and helps out or lets you do something in a high quality way that's, does the job for the story that you're telling is going to be very important. And I think that's across the board for not just filmmaking, but also for commercials and for other content as well. Now, we talk about this highfalutin technology as if, all the filmmakers have access to it, but really the people that use it the most is broadcast. So I think we're also going to see broadcast adopting more quickly. You're going to see AR and VR and this camera tracking mixed with live production in news and stuff like that happening a lot faster. They need to do slick stuff to keep our attention. It's a dying industry. Broadcast news is gone. We now stream more than we broadcast, right? We watch more streaming content in the US, clearly, definitively, more than we watch broadcast. This change only happened in 2021, I think is when the switchover happened. So, cable companies, news broadcasters, sports, they need to keep our relevance, and they're going to employ these technologies hardcore in 2024, especially when news is losing viewership to social media. So there's going to be an onus there. And sports has to stay relevant because they need to make contracts with all the streaming services. You're going to start seeing streaming services with more sports contracts, more MLB games online, more NFL games, more college football, more all kinds of sport, golf, everything. Races, races is hard to see right now. It's going to become much easier shortly. So I think that technology is going to push all this forward while pushing film technology you're going to finally use this stuff. So a lot of investment has been done in volumetric, a lot of investment has been done in virtual production without big revenue incomes. And you and I are victims of this, right? We've all worked for tech companies that have invested, but are finding it hard to get revenue, especially when there's a slowdown in the industry. So people are not apt to try new stuff. But now it's going to become a necessity that you're going to need to figure out a way to do a pickup shot with George Clooney without having to go to, New Zealand to do this pickup shot. And you're going to figure out a way. And I think this is where the technology that we've been talking about in this episode is really going to come into play, is solving these problems. So I see a bright future for this tech. I'm glad that I learned about volumetric filming and virtual production this year. Going into next year, I think I'll be better prepared. Plus, I'm getting hit up to considering me for doing projects that are related to this technology, which is exactly what I wanted. And that's why we have, for fearlessproductions.tv, you can look us up on, like you said, LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok. And we have a whole behind the scenes series that shows all the work that we've been doing and how we do it, so that people can see, what kind of experts we're working with, who we're bringing to the table. I was able to do this because of people like Tom Thudy and Plackle as my virtual production producer, Aman Segal, who's the physical production producer, who does a lot of TV shows. So the mix of talent was really great. Like I mentioned, the cinematographer and the gaffer. Actually, Joshua, that ended up being our lead artist for Unreal, was clutch because he also came as a technician and worked on set. All these people brought it, and I think we all learned together. And now we're going into next year a lot stronger as a team that can bring solutions like this for filmmakers, for television, and make it really seamless and easy and quick. So I have some pitches going on. As you can see, I have ideas formulating. I'm going to try to pursue this Sphere thing. I have a film that I'm pursuing doing in India. I'm going for a scout in January for a feature film. But aside from that, I'm looking to get my hands dirty with more volumetric filming, more AR stuff, and certainly more virtual production of all flavors, because I think that I learned a lot. So now let's give to the community, make it more accessible. And if you guys pay attention to our website, fearlessproductions.tv, we're going to have a lot of lessons posted shortly about how we did this Project Chimera thing and how we executed it with reference videos. But also, we're going to start some lessons for directors. And I want to teach directors the basics of virtual production without even being at a stage. You don't need to be at a stage. That's like that's a step way down the pipeline. First, you got to know what you want to do. You have to know what shots you want to execute and why, and then you could design the solution that works for it. And I want to teach people how to do that so that they're more apt to exploit the technology themselves and a little bit less scared to try it out. Because I think we have a lot of trepidation, and we have a lot of people that are intimidated by the complexities of virtual production and volumetric. But honestly, we have such great vendors and players that have made it very easy to get into if you just have the right pieces. So I think that the time has come for a lot of these companies to start working and stay busy. So I wish the best for them. Certainly I met a lot of great people this year, but it's going to be tough. The economics of some of this stuff is tough. The stuff that's already proven that enough people aren't using yet, right? That's already been figured out. It's already easy to do, but it needs more people to go ahead and use it, because there's so many more uses than people think for this technology. So let's encourage listeners to come up with their own ideas and, make some stuff and send us links. I'd love for you to contact me at fearlessproductions.tv or any of the social media sites. Like I mentioned, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn.
I was just thinking about this. I would love to see like the floor is lava, but like an XR. Like actually strap on like a headset, right? So I'm in my living room and I'm like hopping from couch to couch, right? But I'm trying to avoid molten lava, right? But it's really just my carpet. But what I'm seeing is I'm about to fall into the volcano. That'd be a fun revisiting of an old project that you did. Maybe I'm showing video of it right now in the background as I'm talking about this.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was done with Rocket Jump. We worked with Freddie W. was the producing that. Freddie just came out with a feature film, so look out for that. He's doing great stuff. Did TV as well with Matt and his team over there. We worked with Clint, and Clint is a big 3D guy actually. He's known as Punisher online and does fantastic work. He does these. Clint does this awesome thing. He does this 3D contest where he creates a template in 3D and then has 3D artists all over the world submit their submissions. And this last one was awesome. It was a boss main character showdown. It's just like a 5-second clip, but like the amount of amazing entries he did one video with like 100 of the top, and then he did another video with like I think all 2,000 or 3,000 entries or something like that. It's crazy, but he does really good stuff to support the community and learn from it. And so when we worked with Freddie and Rocket Jump and Clint and everybody, the whole idea was to take technology and then again make it easier to use, bring it to an independent level. So I had a background already in creating viral videos, so it was great to work with this team because I was able to bring lens metadata to a small, tiny little independent production, and use lens metadata. Like who does that, right? Like that's usually for the big players, the big girls and boys, use it in their VFX productions for big movies, but we're able to do it for, very inexpensive, maybe like, I think it's probably like a $10,000 project. And it's their biggest viral hit on YouTube. So, did the lens metadata create the video? No, absolutely not. Lens metadata played a very tiny part of the whole production because obviously it's the filmmakers and the team bringing their creativity and their know-how, but certainly it helped the process. And that's cool to see is that we were able to take a technology, make it seamless, get a great look with the lenses, but also exploit the metadata technology in After Effects to be able to composite easier. And that was pretty cool that we were able to do that. But man, those kids were scrappy, young filmmakers, but seasoned. They had done quite a bit of work. Clint has also been associated with Corridor Digital. He does the VFX Reacts videos. He used to do those as well. So he's definitely been around the scene. It was great to work with him. It was great to work with Freddie. Freddie's a lovely guy. Freddie Wong, fantastic person. He's one of the OG YouTubers. We met when I was teaching a Canon boot camp at a conference. I did a presentation, and he's like, "Oh, I've been watching your videos online and stuff, and wanted to come talk to me." And I think that was really sweet. And then we've known each other since. But yeah, I love working with filmmakers, and I'm an open book. Like there's no secrets. So if you ask me, I'm just going to tell you exactly the process of how I did it. And I think that's what we've been doing on social media is just being very forthright and honest and telling you when we fail or telling you when something doesn't work and how we figured it out. Because I think that's part of the part of the process, and it's important for people to realize that. But yeah, we want to do workshops for directors, help them understand virtual production. That's next. And then of course, keep doing more projects, and then just, work with the filmmaking community, be a source of information and education, because that's important, because with that comes legitimacy and trust. So when you're educating others, you also get a lot of people looking at you like, okay, well, they know what they're doing, and they're very helpful. They seem pleasant. They're very patient. So therefore, maybe they're cool to work with. Maybe we should try working with them. And I think that's the kind of modus operandi that I've been operating under in this industry for a while now, for decades. I've always tried to be a source of information if I can. I'm not always right, but certainly I know where to find the info, and I know a lot of people, so I can call people and put people together. And I think that it's paid back in tenfold doing this project, because all my friends in the industry that I've helped out have turned around, and then a lot of them helped me out to get this thing done. And I think that that's the collaborative part of filmmaking that you don't get to hear about in the gossip rags, is like what it takes a family to make a movie. All these names that in American filmmaking that you think are singular men and women, they're not. You know, Lucas and Spielberg, they don't work in a bubble. they they work with a team that they trust for years. Francis Ford Coppola doesn't work with new people on his principal team. Certainly he works with new people for a lot of the positions on a film because that's what you do. But his core, group is always with him. A lot of filmmakers use the same editor all the time, or like Fincher likes to use the same DP nowadays. Eric's always his DP because they have a great language and they work well together. There's a lot of trust. So therefore, Eric is bringing his camera team with him that works on a lot of Fincher projects. And so then they have a lot of trust and they know what to expect. They can move quickly. There's a lot of family building and friendships that happen behind the scenes. So I think that that's an important part of filmmaking, and I'm really grateful for that. So I think going into this next year, Fearless has a lot to bear and bring to the table. But I'm so excited about all the stuff you're doing, to tell you the truth, because I'm so into the nerf. I'm so into the nerf. But I wanted to ask you. I have a question for you. What do you think about Gaussian splatter?
That is the new like belle of the ball now. That's the talk of the town. Everyone's talking about splats. A couple of months ago, it was all about nerfs everywhere. You go to conferences to talk about nerfs, but now with splats, we know that every couple of months, every couple of years, there's a new technology that's kind of in the zeitgeist that people are talking about. But there's something different about splats, I think, that has really ignited the community. Every other day, I look on my LinkedIn feed or look on my Twitter feed, and there's some like university student or some single developer that say, "Hey, I got splats working in a web browser. Hey, I got this really cool transition. Hey, this random person in Canada has it working for XR headsets." So there's like this whole like kind of grassroots movement really putting it all together. Processing time is faster. The quality is better and it's editable. So people are bringing splats into Unreal Engine, into Unity, relighting the scenes. They're doing editing, so there's more flexibility. For Nerfs, it was a big ordeal trying to relight it and remix it with splats. It plays nicely. I've never seen so many YouTube videos pop up about Gaussian splats.
There should be multiple methods, right? Traditionally, in volumetric, the old way of doing it was create a mesh and then project photographs on top of it, which I think Nerf is similar to that. It's really where are photographs in space, right? Where is this image in space? So that makes sense that it's hard to relight because it's really a photographic image that's your final, essentially your lit image that you're showing. Whereas Gaussian splattering, it seems like it's data.
I think the big thing with splats is that it's so lightweight and flexible. They don't just have this rigid thing that's limited and like, okay, what you see is what you get and that's it. You could see on all those videos on YouTube and social media, people are relighting scenes and they're remixing it and they're integrating it into their VFX pipeline. So this is what people want. And is this the end all be all? No, I guarantee in like 2 months from now, it's going to be some other crazy word. It's not going to be nerfs. It's not going to be splats. It's going to be like slime or gack.
I mean, it's so cool that we've come to the point that with virtual production and of course these game engines, like you said, being able to capture something live, put it into an engine and change it in 3D, and then animate it live with an actor and do it very quickly. It just makes a lot of sense because that's what everyone's looking for. This is what's going to change the game. Again, with an A-list actor, if I can go out and do a 3D scan that not only got imagery, but got depth information, and then my objects that it saw could be then rendered in 3D automatically, right? Now I could shift my camera angle from one side of the table to the other without having to have a real table. Like this is cool. That's awesome. Like that's exactly the flexibility a creative would want is to be able to do stuff like that. So
I think we're going to see things that are more dynamic. A lot of the captures we've been seeing have been static objects, backgrounds, I wouldn't be surprised if by summer 2024, we're going to see dynamic splats. So dynamic volumetric capture. So it's no longer kind of just being frozen in time, like people doing the mannequin challenge, kind of standing still while someone walks around them, scanning them with a phone. There's going to be a combination of AI and reality capture.
Yes, in a phone app, for sure. You'll be able to stream a video as you're capturing it, and then you get back a 3D version of whoever you captured. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially with Apple's Vision Pro headset,
Yeah.
that's going to need content. It's not going to just be
Yes.
flat 2D screens that are projected. If I wanted that, I could just look at a screen like I'm doing right now. But we're going to need something with depth, with 3 dimensions. So I feel like all the stars are aligning for that to happen.
Absolutely.
So
we need holograms.
We need holograms.
Well, okay, so I was there when the VFA was formed, right? I was a board member for the Volumetric Format Association when it first started. And at that time, I kept telling people, like, look, in a few years, you're going to go to a sports bar, and instead of a TV, they're going to have this pool table sized device that is going to be projecting a game as a hologram. So your close-ups are going to be holograms. Your whole football field will be a hologram. You'll be able to see a shot. You'll be able to pick things as an audience. You'll be able to move in to see different plays from different angles whenever you want to. That's on the way. Like that interactive experience. Like that's how you get people engaged into sports is to immerse them in it. And I certainly think that holograms for that kind of entertainment is quickly going to come to the table pretty quickly. The table is going to come pretty fast. I think that's what's going to be the onus, is those kinds of experiences. Now, hologram for a movie might not be as easy because you can't control stuff, right? Like lighting conditions and things like that. So it doesn't make as much sense, but totally does for sports or race cars or golf, and where you don't have to actually be there on the field now. And now you can get a version of that, a very personal touch that you can move around and drink your beer, go around the table and see another angle. Like that's what people want. So I think that's there. And when we were in the VFA, we were trying to define volumetric, because I think that's important to do when you first start an organization like that. The definition we settled on was anything that is capture in a volume of reality that's digitized, and there's a digital version of it, and we don't know what form it's going to take. And that's absolutely true, because right now you can do structured light, you can do Gaussian splattering, you can do NeRF, you can do just image-based capture, you can do with Z-depth, without Z-depth in 3D. There's so many different versions of creating video or animated content in a volume. So I agree with you. I think 2024 is going to be an explosion, but wait till you see the hologram tables, man. That's when you know when it's arrived.
This has been the Volumetric Roundtable, produced by Dengenuity Labs, brought to you by the Volumetric Format Association. The VFA is a global community dedicated to driving volumetric technology forward through best practices, standards, and collaboration. If you're interested in joining, go to volumetricformat.org/join. The community tier is free. This is Eric Azares. This has been the Volumetric Roundtable. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.